Welcome, Daniel.
Hey man, thanks.
So glad to have you here.
Good to see you.
Please, wherever you like.
Over here?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for coming by. I know you're busy.
Yeah, you know, it's I pretty much live on an airplane these days, so.
Yes. That's so tell me about Europe and how you started. You know, just to people know the story, but I'd like to have it here because you've created such immense success. How did it start?
Well, you know, I started my first company here in Europe when I was 14 and I'm 28 now, so I'm actually becoming sort of a veteran here, but you know, it really started, Sweden was known for piracy. If you think about it, we had Kazaa, we had the Pirate Bay, it sort of all stemmed from Sweden.
And then Skype.
And the Skype, there were positive side effects of it, but it was really like, because there was ubiquitous broadband and everyone had it and it was super fast, I think consumption, a lot of these trends that we're talking about today, video and everything else, already existed prior to the services existed. So that meant that the pirate networks were really kind of the pioneers and the innovators. And it was even so bad in Sweden that at one point there was an EU election and there was a party called the Pirate Party that got 5% of all votes in the election. And it's kind of crazy. But why we started Spotify was really as a reaction to that, because we felt that, hey, you know, it was obvious to us that the products worked. Like, people loved Kazaa, people loved Napster, but the problem was that it wasn't working for the industry. And we've been talking a bit about that today, like how do you monetize professional content? How do you make it work? We felt that the number one and the most important thing was you have to create a product that's better than piracy. And you have to start there. So we felt...
And disrupting the industry is good, but you have to make it legal as well. Important.
For me, like, I almost think that disrupting the industry is kind of like overused as a term. We didn't think like, oh, we're going to disrupt the music industry, or we're going to do this. We felt that, hey, we want this product to exist. We want it to be easier to consume music. We want it to be easier to share music with your friends. How do you build that product? And the vision really was like, what if you had iTunes, but you had all the world's music in it? And how do you create that experience? And it was really from...
And on any device.
And on any device.
Did you have that in mind already?
Yeah, I mean, we felt that there were so many devices coming out, but it was really a shame that you were sort of locked to the Apple ecosystem of just the iPod and just the iPhone, and we wanted it to work everywhere, like water, really.
Yeah, that's very incredible. And how did you then become so successful in the US? Is US your first market?
We actually launched in the US in July. So the funny thing is, like, when we started the company, we didn't know anything about what it would take to license music or, you know, get the rights or anything like it. We really focused on product first. So we kept building it. We started in Sweden, we rolled it out in Europe, and it actually took us 2 more years before we could enter the US.
But so tell me about that fight. I mean, it took you 2 years, right?
Right.
To get there. But that's very interesting, I think, because everybody kind of failed in the US. And you, coming from Europe, cracked the US market.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty wild ride. I mean, since Facebook, we've added, the F8 launch, we added 7 million users.
7 million new users?
Yes.
On Facebook.
Yeah. So it's pretty remarkable in a very short time frame.
I guess being friends with Zook is important.
Yeah, it definitely helps. I'll say that. But I think more so, we just kept cranking on the product, and we realized that every person who used Spotify loved the product, and they were inviting their friends. And if you have a product that's really contagious, that people want to talk about, that people want to like share with their friends, Like most people in the beginning told us like, oh, you got a client, no one wants to download a client, no one wants to do that. I don't think it matters. I think what matters is like you have a great user experience. You put the user in the focus and you solve a problem. Like the most important thing that I think entrepreneurs forget about is what is the problem you're solving? In our case is how can you make all the world's music accessible in less than half second? That's really that case.
And social too, like I can go and listen to your music from Facebook. Like the Facebook experience completely changed my music experience, which is pretty lame, I have to admit. Like my knowledge is near zero.
Yeah.
Then I can go and see what Daniel is listening or what Zuckerberg is listening. I know he likes the French Daft Punk, for example.
We both do. That's one thing. And yeah, you kind of need to upgrade your music taste a bit, but that's a later question.
Yeah, I'll take all your advice.
Yeah, it's good.
So how do you crack just this one? Like how everybody fails in the US to convince the majors and work their way in, and you arrive and you make it work. How do you do that?
Well, first and foremost, it wasn't easy, and it took us more than 2 years to do it. But I think a lot of it really had to do with we consistently set targets for ourselves together with the record labels and others, and we just kept proving that this model does work. Like people start using our product, they keep engaging, they build a library, and when they do, they feel comfortable paying for it. And a lot of people ask us, so what are you paying for? Well, the first thing, you're paying for portability. And it's a simple notion, because if you ask yourself, how many people do you know that bought something off iTunes for the sole purpose of listening in front of your computer, you'll find that it's really not that many. But actually, people buy music because they want to take it with them in their cars or on their iPod when they're going out exercising or whatever they're doing. So we just, again, we focus on that as being the pain point, but a lot of our users, when we ask them, why are you paying? It's like, well, I love the product. It's really that simple.
Yeah, the product is great. How about Apple? Because like you can totally just remove iTunes from your Mac and run Spotify, and it's awesome, and you've got everything and more because it's free, right?
You can definitely do that. What we find though is like people continue to use iTunes. They change their music discovery though through Spotify, and over time as they build their library, they kind of move from the ownership-centric model that is Apple today to the access model of having everything available. And I think once conceptually you kind of get that into your habits, and especially like when you get the sharing flowing, it really changes how people discover music, how people share.
Any Spotify user in the room?
Oh wow, it's pretty awesome. It's.
You have a few friends here, but
yeah, it seems like that. So hopefully you guys have a better music taste than we here. But
well, Daft Punk is awesome. You don't like Daft Punk?
Daft Punk is truly awesome. It's one of my favorite bands. So
that's the only one I know.
Yeah.
Tell me, Daniel, you have some news. I think today.
Yeah. So
so today Spotify is really like you install it, you get the music, you play it.
Yeah. We have an application that you download to your PC. We have a mobile app.
Can I put my iPhone on?
See here if it works. We got mobile apps for pretty much every platform here. Let's see.
This is a friend of mine who's done this playlist. It's pretty hardcore. I don't know.
It's great. It's great.
Anyway, thank you. So that's the Spotify experience. I really did so.
Yeah, that sounds like Parker's playlist, by the way. He usually listens to Skrillex. So basically, last week we announced an application platform. Basically, the opportunity for every developer now to start building music apps on top of Spotify, and obviously have all the world's music accessible and making it easy. So we have concerts apps like Songcake. We had Rolling Stone magazine. We had TuneWiki, so you can look at lyrics.
How does this work? Because you have a lot of developers here, entrepreneurs, developers. How is that Spotify becoming a platform? Explain. Can I just get an SDK? I can build a...
Yeah. So you can go onto our website, and there's a developer API there, and you can download the SDK and you can start building HTML5 apps through a very easy to use JavaScript APIs basically, and hook into the Spotify experience. And the really cool thing about it is we've seen like a lot of uses already of it. We've seen TuneWiki creating lyrics so that you can, as you're playing the music, even if you're fast forward, you just jump to the exact words that they're singing, so you can sing along like I usually do. Or a Songcake will look at all the stuff in your library and create a calendar of concerts you might want to go to. So there's really all sorts of experiences, but our New York team, engineering team, they looked at our platform 2-3 months ago and they're like, oh, well, we want to build an app. We've always lacked radio. So they started building that, and I started I started playing around with the product and I realized, holy shit, this is awesome. So what we're really announcing today is that we built a radio app on top of our platform.
A radio app?
Yeah.
So you have Spotify Radio now?
Yeah, Spotify Radio on Spotify. It's kind of like Pandora, but it's with unlimited skipping and unlimited stations. You can just keep going in there. And it's been, as we played around with it, I've discovered so much new music just through this app in like the last couple of weeks that it's been insane. So we think people will love playing around with it. We love to see what developers will do as well on top of that.
Why is that big news for you? Which you just released now.
Right.
A radio streaming, making Spotify streaming and making it a radio. Why is that so important?
Well, what we discovered really is that there's a lean back experience and a lean forward. And I think, one of the points that I made with our announcement last week was that music for us is just really about covering all these use cases and making it personal to you. And Spotify historically hasn't been very good at curating music and kind of making it personal. But through all of these app partnerships, we've done that. And now it just turned out that actually, hey, we can build apps ourselves really on top of our platform, and it's really fast for us to develop. But it was a big use case that a lot of people were asking us for. And today we've covered that use case, and I think, what I love about the experience really is that you can skip as many tracks as you want and really
you can do that here, right? You can skip as well.
Yeah, sure, but it's not a radio station. So if you think about it for a US user, they have Pandora today, and Pandora obviously limits the amount of skips you can do.
Oh.
So
So the big deal is that it's unlimited skips
and unlimited stations.
And
at least if you're
so Pandora has limited skips, limited stations. I see.
Exactly. So it was a big thing for us. Our users was like, hey, I want to easily add things from the radio into my music library. And, we managed to do that, and it was a seamless experience now so that you can really use the radio app in Spotify and just like do the lean back experience, but at the same time save it as a playlist or skip the song or add it to my library. So it really was a big use case that we now cover.
And is that something you did to differentiate yourself to compete? Because you're very differentiated already, but tell me about your competition. You're quoting Pandora. What else matters for you? Are you US-centric?
I wouldn't say that we're US-centric at all. And I wouldn't even say that Pandora is a competitor. We look at ourselves that we want to be a music platform, and we want to make it easy for people to consume and really enjoy as much music as possible and share it with their friends. So we don't really look at it like that, but obviously the U.S. is an important market to us. But even more so, I think one of the things that we talked about coming here is like I think that there's so much cool innovation going on in Europe. I was really surprised coming back to Sweden earlier this year. And there's some fantastic companies there. There's up and coming companies like Tripbirds and others, but there's also Mojang that does Minecraft. There's Klarna that does payments. There's all these companies now that are coming around and they're getting more and more mature. And I was honestly feeling very inspired and feeling the buzz and the vibe in the Stockholm community, and traveling around Europe, I feel the same pretty much in every city.
Well, we got 300 startups candidates last year, 600 this year at LeWeb, mostly from Europe. So
yeah,
that proves it. Why do you think is that? Because you're saying you're inspired. I think you're inspiring them. Because you're building a worldwide success from Europe, from Sweden. So.
Sure, but I think all these successes feeds each other. Much like if you think about, like I'm sure you've read Jobs.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Who's read Steve Jobs' bio?
Okay, there's still a good portion that haven't.
It's long.
Yeah, it's really long. But one of the sections that I liked probably the most is in the end when he, advises Larry Page of Google, and a lot of people, given that he was claiming to be kind of upset with Google, wonder why he did that. But he was like, no, that's the value ethos. We inspire and help each other. So I think that the successes that Europe are having, like Spotify and others, are truly kind of, we want to pay it forward, and I think we as Europe need to create more of a pay it forward culture, because we're spread out in all these cities. But
on that point, Daniel, Eric Schmidt on this stage on our first day said Silicon Valley needs a competitor. Europe needs to build a competitor of Silicon Valley. How do you see that? Because there are clusters. We're talking this morning with representatives from the government, from French and
right.
UK, and we have clusters. Do you see it happening in one place? Do you see it happening all over Europe? How do you see that?
Honestly, I don't think that there's one cluster in Europe. I mean, I see great innovation in Stockholm, but I see it in Helsinki too with Rovio and others. I see it in Berlin with SoundCloud and others. I see it here in Paris. I see it in London. So there's a diversity, but this is why I think events like this matter so much. Because we have the opportunity, this is when we can get together. And this is why we should really create a paid-forward kind of culture throughout Europe where we help each other, much like the Valley historically has.
Explain paid-forward culture.
Well, for me, it's mostly about, like, I don't spend I try to run a company and try to do the best I can at that, but...
You're doing well.
Thanks. But, I try to meet entrepreneurs as much as I can. I don't do investments, I really don't do anything other than focus on Spotify. But if anyone wants advice from me, I try to give it as often as I can.
Let's get it right now.
Sure.
What's your top 3 advice for entrepreneurs in the room, starting from Europe, to create a world leader?
Well,
or to succeed in the US?
So first, I don't think about geographies. I know everything is different in every country, but I think there's some simple points you can make, which is, for me, the idea is 5% and the execution is 95%. It doesn't matter. The right person can sell umbrellas in Sahara and they'll figure out a way that, like, it's sun protecting, or it's great because it generates electricity. They'll iterate on that idea and they'll improve on it. So I really believe that, like, execution is in everything, and
yeah, your apps are extremely polished. We had Karen just before you who was explaining that no one should be mediocre, and really matters the most. So.
Yeah,
so you're not in the, like, Reid Hoffman quote, the founder of LinkedIn, who said if you're not ashamed of your product, when you ship it, you ship it too late.
Yeah.
You want the opposite. You want more polishing.
Well, I think we as a company, we have really never kind of subscribed to the sort of put it out there and see what happens. I think for certain things you can do that, and I think it probably makes sense for most things. But you know, it's like the Henry Ford quote, like if people would have asked me what to build, it would have said a faster horse. Instead, he went on and built a car. Sometimes you got to do things that are unexpected that takes it to the next level. And you know what I try to focus my team on now is we have the luxury of having dedicated teams that can work on things because we've grown to the size now where we can do things, which means that certain projects we do, like the app platform, that's like something we've been working on for over a year. But we can still kind of execute with the rest of our business. And ultimately, I just think, you know, coming in from the 95% is execution, the next thing is really about people is everything. And I know this is like, you know, cliche and everyone says...
No, I agree. It's the team you bring together. Are you one of those founders who thinks it's more like a one-man show to start with when you're a startup, or is it more like, no, you need one great engineer, you need maybe a designer, you need more someone who is marketing, sales, or CEO, you know, the non-technical?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps if you want to build like a really, you know, a strong product. I think it really helps if you know the technology.
You're coding yourself?
I'm not coding it myself. My team would be, you know, very sad if it did, because I would probably break most things for them. But I used to do that, and I used to be like hobby designer of things. I used to be a jack of all trades, and I would just encourage you as entrepreneurs just to try everything, like learn and be, you know. The biggest thing, people often ask me, so what do you do, and you know, what do you like doing? And for me, you know, I come into work every day, I get to meet really smart people, I and my coworkers, I get to have a lot of fun, and I get to learn. It's really, really simple. So for me, you know, it really comes down to, you're going to spend all this time with the people, so choose them carefully. And the most important part is like the early days, the team you pick, because it will create winners. But your job, if you're a founder, and I think this is the point that most people get, it's not to do everything.
Yeah.
But
so pick one bad. So first, you're saying execution.
Yeah.
Second, people.
Yeah.
And the third one is focus.
Yes. And it took me a long time. I will actually say that it took me probably until 6 months ago until I really understood.
Oh yeah, it was a terrible failure before that.
Well, you know, I think it was doing all right, but I look at myself and I just think that the most important thing that I can do, and this is the one piece of advice, if you're an entrepreneur, like the advice I'll give you, is think of yourself as an editor. A lot of people don't do that, but your job is really to distill every single point to the smallest piece that makes sense for your team and for the outside world. Which is why, you know, if I look at what I do now, I focus most of my time in really narrating and making it simple and understandable for people what we do.
So like creating, you mean everything happening in the company,
Yeah.
like a maestro?
Well, yeah, or an editor. I actually like the editor analogy better, because it's really about setting the context and choosing what not to do more than what you do.
Can we talk about revenues a little bit? I think you're communicating in public on how many paid users you have?
Yeah, sure. We have over 2.5 million paying customers, which is great.
Pay how much?
Most of them, the vast majority of them, pay us €10 a month.
2.5 million paid users by 10 a month?
Yeah.
That's a pretty neat business.
It's a pretty neat business, yeah. And the interesting part, it just keeps growing, because like every user we bring on, what we know is the more they engage with Spotify, the more likely they are to pay. But because we...
That's like Evernote, Phil was explaining that. The more they are in, of course, because you get all my music and...
Yeah, I think actually Evernote is probably one of the most similar companies to us, because it's a true freemium model.
And cloud-based with all the apps on all the platforms.
Yeah, we think what Evernote's doing is great. So and we're big users of the product too. So yeah, I mean, and the interesting thing about Evernote too is like the reason why you pay for the product is because you really like the product.
Yeah.
And in most cases, people ask us like, what's the secret sauce? And we could point to 25 different reasons why people pay. But the most important one is just the very simple one, that it's all about the product, and if users love your product, they will recommend it to friends. People ask me about, oh, what virality tricks did you do, and all of that.
Yeah, you have no tricks, right?
No,
well, Facebook helps virality a little bit.
No, Facebook is probably
7 million users.
right now. Facebook is the greatest distribution platform on earth. That's really the case. But with that said, ultimately, what Facebook optimizes for is people wanting to share things. And they won't share it unless it's something that's beautiful, simple, and that just works. And that's really what Spotify aspires to be.
Daniel, tell me, when Facebook helps you get 7 million new users, what happens? And you're saying I've got 2.5 million registered paid users. What happens? Like, is Mark telling you, hey, can I go cut on that? What's the deal?
No, I mean, I think, Mark, he really looks at this as a way of creating more engagement around content. And I think he looks much broader at, what Facebook today, and he's just trying to encourage more sharing. Like if you listen to what he speaks about, I would say that he realized that the value of Facebook is really the interactions between people. And obviously music is a very, very big part, and I think both him and I believe that music is probably the most social object there is. So to kind of put that on Facebook and making all that sharing possible would be a big thing, and it turned out that was...
But do you share some revenue too?
No, he has his business and I have my business, and we happen to be on the Facebook platform, and we're very happy with that partnership.
Okay. No, well, it looks pretty successful. It's extremely impressive what you have built. So what's coming next? You're going IPO in a few months?
No IPO in sight, definitely not. I mean, again, we just focus on a few years. I said something, and a lot of people were questioning that, but I still mean it, which is we just want to build a truly great company. And we believe that it starts with the product, and then it's all about the people in the company, the culture you set. And we just still want to keep doing that, and everything else is secondary. This is not, the objective of this company is not to sell the company. I was lucky to get money before I started Spotify, enough to know that it really didn't make any difference in my life at all. On the contrary, actually, I became very unhappy, and I realized that the thing that we're passionate about is truly just, even if it's in a really small way, changing the world and getting people, in our case, to listen to more music and share it with their friends.
How do you get Sean Parker as an investor?
Well,
you call him, hi Sean.
No, actually, I think it's well publicized now. He wrote me this really long email, and it took me 2 days to even respond to it because it was so lengthy that I felt that I had to craft an equally, well responded note back. And I don't write long emails normally, so it took me probably 2 days to write that. So he discovered the product, he really liked it, and he sent me this really long email about why he felt that this could be it, but also all of the faults. And he had quite a long list of things that he didn't like. So we just kept that dialogue back and forth, but I think Sean and I really look at the world in a similar way, which is, it's truly all about, in this case in music, that the world has moved from an ownership model to being about an access model, and you have to make it easier for people to enjoy music and share it, and when you do that, everything else falls into place.
You're going to be around at LeWeb today. What's the best way to interact with you? Twitter, Facebook?
Yeah, Twitter's like a really good way.
Daniel Ek?
Yeah, Daniel Ek, or my Twitter handle, and this is going to be hard because it's a Swedish word, is ELDSJAL. And it means, it's eldsjäl in Swedish, and what it means is like when someone's like truly passionate, burning for something. You know, that's what we do.
Daniel, you're the icon of the new Europe of technology. This is incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.